Hi everybody, Michael here from BizBudge. I'm going to create some videos here or a series of videos on how to create budgets using some different software tools. And this will be one in a series of videos just on how to create a budget for business or for a household. The idea will be that we move through several tools, starting at the sort of fairly basic end and moving up to sort of pieces of software, just to give people an idea of what types of tools are out there, what might suit you, and how to use them. Some people and businesses use tools that sometimes it might be over-engineered and be too complicated for what they need. And at other times people outgrow where they're at and they want to see what's next. So this will give you a good idea, I suppose, of where you sit on the spectrum. And it's also something to watch to essentially create your own budget. And it applies, though, to any type of collecting of information or database type activity, but we are particularly going to focus on budgets. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use Excel. I'm using Excel 2016, a fairly common piece of software that a lot of people have at home or in the office at work that they can use. This is going to be the first one, as I said, so we're going to jump right into creating a budget. So what I would typically do here is and again, if you need information on anything I'm doing here, any of the functions or anything, please feel free to send an email or write a comment below. We're going to enter a budget in for a particular financial year in the form of a profit and loss statement, also called an income statement. I'll put the months along the top row here. What I can do is drag that across then for the full year. If this is a financial year in Australia, you might find that if you're doing a household budget, you might start at January here and go through to December, or if you're in another part of the world, it would be a different month that you would start on and finish on. Anywho, this is what we're going to do for this one. So across the top there I have my time periods. You can also have an out year here, for example. We get a bit fancy here and put a formula in so that you can you don't have to change, or there's less things for you to change. Oops, what have I done there? This is not necessary, but it's just I suppose something you can put in there that adds a nice little piece of information. So we're going to use that year up the top there to increment our out year, for example, and an out year is the year after the current year. So typically you would budget for the upcoming year. Again, this is just setting a budget. So what we expect in a budget, the idea of a purpose of a budget is to work out where the money is coming from and how you're going to spend that money. It's kind of like a financial plan, which is very important for business and households. And a lot of people neglect this activity, but it is very handy. So hopefully this will get you on track if you are thinking about starting to do it. So an income or revenue income statement or a profit and loss statement typically has the description of the summary level or items, particularly on the left-hand side here running down. So we're going to start at the top there with our revenue items. So if we're a business, it would be things like sales. It might be interest. That's also a personal or household revenue item. If it was a household, we'd have salary or wages in there. You don't have to have all of these in here, of course. You pick and choose the ones that you want to put in. And that might be our total revenue. So often there's not that many revenue items, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame for most of us. Now, what I'm going to start with underneath this total revenue, so that's going to be a sum of all the items above, is I'm going to start with an expense. Excuse me. So expenses are obviously things we're going to spend money on. So they're things like cars, buildings, pencils, entertainment. Yep, that's always a fun thing, entertainment. Yep, not quite. Okay, entertainment, staff, if we're a business, that's always a big cost. Depreciation, ooh, that's a very accountant-y type term. If you're doing a household budget, of course, you wouldn't care about that. Insurances, often you group these things together so they make more sense, but we're just doing this as a very rough example. And then we might have our total expenses. So this will give us a total of all of our money, where it's going, and then we're going to have the final line is going to be net profit or loss. So that'll be how things end up at the end of each time period as well as the year. So we're going to put a formula in here now. We're going to sum all the lines above our revenue line, and then we're going to drag it all the way across. So that's going to give us a total, and this is one of the good things about Excel. It's very easy to build these sorts of things. That'll give us a total of our revenue without having to add it up each time. Pretty nifty, huh? Haven't already found that out about Excel. For other people, that's just boring. So we're going to do the same for expenses. We're going to sum everything above our expense line up to just before our total revenue. So all of our expense items, and then the net profit and loss is essentially just your total revenue minus total expenses. How's that? Drag that right across as well. Now our total line here, what we're going to do is sum the rows. So we're kind of doing a little cross tab thing here where we sum the total of our rows, and we can just drag that all the way down, and that will be our total in there. Now this out year can be, imagine, this is getting a bit fancy here too. We shouldn't probably do this in the first one, and the first sort of introductory video, but here, this one can be, say, this total column for the previous year times, we'll put a number in here. How about that? Wouldn't that be cool? And then drag that down. Then what that's going to do is populate these values based on whatever percentage increase we put in the top here. Nice and handy, huh? Now what have I done wrong there? Oh, yep, I've got to put, see, this is why I shouldn't have done this. It's a bit too fancy because we're starting to have to use other formula type things in there so that things don't go askew. Okay, so that's going to increase by that percentage, so we can jiggle that around a bit. We'll put that in bold so we know we can jiggle. Now I'm going to bold up all these ones here, that headers, and then ones that are total lines, because what that'll do for us is then allow us to see those a bit more clearly. And we also know that they're summed values. They are coming from magic, not from us having to type them in. So say, for example, we want to start entering our sales, so we might put $2,000 in that first month. You can see it's going through and now adding up each of our the total revenue amount there, and then also flowing through to our net profit or loss, and then also the total for the year, and then this out year, which is actually 0.5 is what we want to multiply by. No, we don't want to multiply by 0.5, we want to multiply by 1.05. Okay, that's much better. So now we can drag that sales across to the end of the year, and what that'll do is set an amount for each month. See, again, this is quite nifty. Say we were a shop though, and things are busier around Christmas time, so we put in a value for December that might be higher, for example, and maybe January's a bit quieter, everyone's away on holiday, so we can put a lower value in there. And the cool thing is you can make those adjustments. Now, interest might be something that's sporadic, so we can put in a certain amount in different months. We can adjust those. Again, the idea is this is a plan, so you want to set it up as reasonably close to what you think, where you think things will be, because then it'll help you plan and which months are busier or slower. So again, wages and salary might be something that's fixed if you're a household. You can put that value in there and drag it all the way across. And then again, what you see here is a total revenue per month, and then the total value for the year. Now we haven't put any expense items in yet. This is the part where we start to spend our money. So say we spend $80, say it's $80 a month on petrol. Drag that across. And then I might want to put some additional expenses that come along in a particular time period, say such as registration comes up here. We might have insurances in there. So you can adjust amounts in each month, but it obviously doesn't list out individual those items particularly. You could always put the insurances in here, of course. Buildings, now that might be a cost of a building, whatever you spend your building on. It might be rent, or that's pretty cheap rent, isn't it? Really, it might be rent or if you're a household, it might be your mortgage repayments, or leasing. Pencils might be your stationery or whatever you need to spend that on, and it can be different amounts in different time periods. Again, we don't have to necessarily keep it all the same. Ooh, a lot of pencils then, isn't it? Whoops, spelling number mistake. Then entertainment again, and staff, they're always a big one. You can put that in there. $200, say, for example, per month. And then in the busier months, say you've really got to ramp things up here to make all that dosh, and then you cut back a bit here. And then, say, insurances, you might have big insurances come through for something you do. I don't know, whether you hire out jumping castles or something, and that might have a big impact. So now what you can see here is what we might do is we'll actually format these numbers, because what that'll allow us to see is a bit more clearly what the actual dollar value is. And now we might want to bold these as well, because they are very important to us. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. The thing about Excel is you can tidy yourself up. Okay, and we want to make that formatted as well, don't we? Okay, so then what we've got here is you can see that the total revenue line was built from what we did above there, and same is happening with expenses. Now you can also see here that our net profit or loss is going to show us how we're tracking over time, because that is essentially the amount of money coming in minus the amount of money going out. So you're filling the cup up and then you're drinking from on the cup. So in this month here, you can see, well, it's not so clear, I suppose, but that's actually a negative. So we're going backwards in that month. And those things are good to know. What we can do for that, though, is get a bit fancy and add in some conditional formatting. So if our values are greater than 0, for example, we can make it green. And then if they're less than 0, we can make it red. Dun, dun, dun. So then that means that's a bit more clear, isn't that nice and fancy? So then as we're changing numbers here, we can see where that change is impacts us a great deal. So then see, the good thing about Excel, again, I can change values, I can make adjustments to my plan, and then see values, how that impacts the bottom line, as they like to call it. So that's a very sort of brief introduction as to how to set up a budget. And what you could also do, I suppose, is add a chart in too. So if you added a chart, I'm going to insert a column chart here. So if I put that in there, you'll see Excel's now getting pretty fancy on us, and it starts to add in bits and pieces for us. But we actually want to remove, so that it makes a bit more sense, we want to remove some parts of this because otherwise we're going to get, it's really a bit confusing, because we're only going to see, we only really want to see one particular type of value, say expenses at one time. And then you can see it's only put numbers in. So that gives us an idea of where our expenses are, so we can kind of see that more visually. And then we might want to edit the labels too, so that we can actually put a range in that makes a bit more sense, which is our time periods. Okay, and then blammo, look at that. We've got a cool chart as well showing us where our money is going to. So if we were to put a bigger amount in here, the good thing is you can see all of this happen on the screen in the number view. You can also then see that appear here. See how that little appears there? And we can kind of identify where things are going a bit different. Now you can change that chart, of course, but that's a very brief introduction as to how that would work. So again, this is the first video of a series. The idea was really just to show you a very basic how to get a budget up and running so you can see where your money's coming and going. Now again, you can add new lines in here. The cool thing about Excel is, if you miss something out, you can insert in a new line for tax, say you forgot to put that in. And the good thing is Excel will still have that included in all of the things, all the workings, except for these formulas at the end here we need to drag down. But it will essentially add all that in. We add that into our chart here as well, because we're missing that. Look, it dodged the tax. Dodged the tax. You get it. Okay, so look, it's put look at that. It's put the top column back now as well. So we want to fix all those things up, and again, bam, there we have it again. Now we've got tax included as well. So that's the good thing about Excel. Very flexible, easy to use. It kind of is good for one person or one household or one small business. Typically, once you start involving more people or you want to see more detail, then this becomes less of a desired method, but it's a great way of doing essentially back of your envelope calculations of things. What I'm going to move on to next, and the cool thing about this too is we've done a little out year here, so this would show us what it would be like next year, for example, assuming things are going to increase by about 5%, both revenue and expense items. What we're going to do in the next few series is we're going to add in a bit more detail to these and show you how to include more people, or more accounts, and more different ways of adding things up. So if you have any comments, please write them below or send us an email.